going to Jack is always on top of it. And always this week. So, yeah, well, we go to these workshops. Like 75 an hour, I think. 70s.
It's actually nice to do earlier.
Yeah.
If we kept in the shade, it was like not. This is a test of our microphone system. I am looking in the direction of the large gym. Can't see people walking out.
Hello, it's Michelle. How are you?
right, we're gonna reconvene to open session. Okay, we're gonna reconvene to open session at 6:02. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted, capturing images and sounds of those attending the meeting. 4.2 report of actions taken in closed session, none. Attendance roll call, President Rothberg Allen here, Clerk Reed.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez. Trustee Lopez Jones. Here. Trustee Rios. Here. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. District mission statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. 5.1 public business from the floor, non-agenda items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that is not on the agenda. Without taking action or entering into a dialogue with the public, board members may briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter may be referred to administration. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Okay. 6.1, 2024 summer program overview.
Yeah, I'm excited to introduce Tammy Berryhill and Randy Burbank, our summer school principals. This is I think our best summer school yet for our summer school program. We think our 4th or 5th year with expanded summer programs. I think each year it gets a little bit better as we refine it and re-refine it. So we're excited to hear a little bit more about the program.
Hello, board members. So yeah, as Michael mentioned,
I'll try again. Hello, board members. As Michael mentioned, this is one of our largest programs, which was interesting because we had like the most construction we've ever had going on too. So it was a very interesting summer. We had, as you can see, we had the 29 summer teachers and 14 summer paras. We had some outside teachers, but we had a lot of our staff, which I noticed that was a big difference for me this year because I've been doing, this is my 3rd year, and the difference of having our staff work for us who already know the kids, know, the curriculum, I think it made a huge difference, and it's 70% was our staff this year.
One of the things, this is my first year of running the summer school program, so it's a growth experience for myself. What was nice was, though, that we had our teachers that were outside of our district were here from the following year, knew how the program run, knew what to expect it. So it was a smooth transition. So the consistency was very noticeable for the students and for the flow for the programs.
Yeah, that's true. I should make a note. The teachers that we had from outside the staff were returning summer school teachers that we've had before. So that was a big difference too, which is what made it really nice. At CES, we had 190 students signed up. And we had basically 3 programs going on. We have the Bridges, which was one of the biggest the largest amount of kids that we've had. And I'll tell you what, after 3 days, they looked like they had been there for months. I mean, they did great. And the Family Center, a special shout out to the Family Centers. They do a great job of finding the kids out in the, the community who haven't been to preschool yet. So these are the little tiny newbies coming in. So, And then we had the extended school year, which is for our special day students. And then we had the Wildcat Camp, which this year only went to 5th grade due to the construction because had limited space. So the rising 6th graders went over and attended Randy's program.
So here at the junior high and high school site, we had about 4 programs. Again, the Wildcat Academy with rising 6th and 9th graders, extended school year with students with special needs that were transitioned into our regular program. So they were opportunities were given to participate at all levels. Also with our ELD program, and then our Wildcat Achieve for those students that needed to do some credit recovery, with roughly 172 students involved.
So just like the years prior, we do a kickoff with the staff and we have a teacher work day so everyone can get prepared and familiar with the curriculum. The times were the same, which seems to really work for the parents and the staff. At CES, we tried a new program. We've done Scholar Zone before, but I piloted Lit Camp for the littles. Scholar Zone was kind of not meeting their needs. Lit Camp made it a little funner. So that seemed to have gone really well for the younger students. And then we had art, music, and PE. Library, because the library was being used for the AR renovations that were happening in there. We got to go down to the Calistoga Library for field trips, and that was amazing. Like, they had programs set up for them. They had the story time for the TKs coming in. So it's something I really want to continue to do every summer. And I hope teachers do it during the year too.
So with our rising 6th and 9th graders, we had our LEAP program working with our ACE partners. Engineering, sports, robotics is new this year. With drones, math, we also added social studies into the program. In English. For grades 10, 11, again, we did Apex for traditional credit recovery. This year, or last summer, we did math with Alex for credit recovery, trying to find a way to support our students in math, make up those credits, and also give them the skills to take, for example, if they struggled in math 1, so next year that they would have a foundation for math 2 to be successful. We will still be meeting with the math department this week on ways to support our students. There's an ongoing conversation. One of the cool things about our LEAP program, where students had opportunity to go to the Oakland Zoo, the Epic Center, and pool days. So it was a fun adventure.
That's just a breakdown. It's kind of a neat graph that Alex puts together for us of all the where the students are. So you can kind of see, it's interesting for me because I can see where the trends are. It's like the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and 5th graders are kind of our largest groups. So some comments?
No, not really. Just looking at the data right here, one of the things that we're going to try to hope for the following year and next summer is try to increase the reality, is try to increase our LEAP program and hopefully decrease our Apex credit recovery.
Oh, that's
This is just a summary of our credit recovery of the Apex program. So we had 14 students enrolled in our math program. Of those 14 students, 21 courses were completed. Out of those 21 courses, 105 math credits were completed. Then we went back to our traditional Apex courses. 72 students were enrolled with 230 ELA credits completed. As you can see, 240 social science credits completed, and 85 science credits were completed during the summer school sessions.
As I mentioned before, this was one of our larger programs with a smaller footprint. So navigating this space and keeping the kids safe was interesting, but we still made it work. The kids kind of forgot the construction was happening. So it was really still an environment conducive to learning and engagement. I mentioned the specials. I want to also throw out a thank you to the Napa Valley Education Foundation because they provided the music teacher for us that all the students got to. It was like a full-time music teacher. Before, just the younger kids got music, and this time everybody got music. And then also the Sharp Sea Museum, because our older students did a field trip down there.
At the junior high level, with our ACE partners and their support was amazing. They helped navigate students, especially our rising sixth graders, even our rising seventh graders, on how to go from class to class. So it was a great introduction on how to do junior high. So it wouldn't be so scary. Students love the curriculum, especially robotics and drones. I think they also enjoyed the sports program that was offered. And 2 days a week, we did have music for our rising sixth and seventh graders to introduce. So students had an opportunity for a well-rounded experience. And going back to what you said, didn't realize they were doing math, social science, and English throughout the day too. Students were highly engaged in the field trips. And the summer school picnic was actually kind of fun for me as I was barbecuing and getting connect and feeding the students. So that was pretty fun for me. At the high school, at the beginning, we had the MIT engineering boot camp, which was highly successful. Again, many students volunteered and actually helped with our LEAP program. A handful of students helped with our MIT program. Credit recovery program, again, increased student access to curriculum. And then our ELD classes were well attended and kids grew in their English skills and still had multiple opportunities to make up credits. And then math, again, for the students had opportunity to take the ALEX program, again, getting the foundations. So they were successful this year. And so we still, again, still working on how to support our students in math.
These are just some, every year we meet with Michael towards the end, well, at the beginning of the new year and kind of reflect on summer school, like what worked, what didn't, what changes can we make? And we just kind of, one of the things I'm still trying to get to happen, and maybe when we have more space, it was hard to have out, enough classrooms this year, but I still want to get like a STEAM program going during the summer, just to get kids interested in science. And I would kind of like, we've had a large influx of newcomers lately. So I'd like to have like a curriculum that kind of targets those kids. We have 4 weeks, and if we could do like a really kind of intense 4 weeks with them, I think it would really help them. We had one little student, that was his first day of school. First day of summer school was his first day of school. So he thought regular school only was half day and really fun. But sad to say, he's over that now.
At the junior high level, the enrichment opportunities, I do believe that all students benefited from the drama and art, hoping to apply that all 5 days next summer. That students get an opportunity for that. Again, we do have a robust STEM program at the junior high, keep that going. The field trips with the supportive base, again, was the highlight. And also my learning point is do it later in the year in the program. Just to attach students there a little bit longer. Personally, again, it was my first year, but having at the LEAP program, having those sixth graders on campus, I think was beneficial, and I would highly have conversations to do that again this year. I think it was a great opportunity. I think they're ready to grow, and I think it's a safe way for them to see what the next step is. Credit recovery for math, consider change to a more traditional model. Again, having conversations on what's the best way to support our students in math. And then for myself, just looking at this year was the pre-summer program and staffing. Just as the year goes by, working with our site counselor, falling on credits at semester, trying to be proactive with students and letting them know where they stand, communicating with families so they could make up credits before we actually get into summer school. Having those conversations beforehand, and also additionally a school counselor be available at the start and at the end of summer school so that we can verify credits and transcripts so that we're making sure that we are enrolling students correctly at the start of summer school, and as they progress through summer school that we're making sure that they're on track on the classes that they need.
So that's it for us. Just a little shout out. That's one of the programs. If you see the picture right there, that's one of the things they offered during the summer. So they brought in puppet shows, and I mean, it was really nice what the library did. So did you get any questions or anything?
No, but thank you for your efforts and for a good program. I know my daughter did it and she really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to the consent agenda. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless any member of the board, the audience, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Thank you. Rudy. This is a roll call vote. President Rothberg Allen, aye. Clerk Reed.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez Jones. Trustee Rios. Trustee Gonzalez. Action item protocol. Protocol for action items include a staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During public input, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person. 8.2, student representative induction.
Good evening. So we do this resolution every September because we get a new student rep every September to join us. She is unable to make it tonight because we have a soccer game and she is playing soccer in Clear Lake. So we're thinking positive thoughts for her. But she did give a report that I'll read during that section. But for resolution 24-25-05, it is to name Kenya Clavel as the student board member for this year. So we're asking the board to approve this resolution.
Can I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. 8.3, board policies and administrative regulations.
Okay, we've got 2 policies we're bringing back for approval. These are policies which previously were read to the board. They've had some time for public input, and we bring them back unchanged for approval.
Can I have a motion? Second. I'm cutting Dara out. It was Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
8.4, resolution 24-2502. Do I need to read the? Okay.
Resolution 24-2502 is to authorize the issuance and sale of $8,884,684. This is the remaining funds from our 2010 bond. So those will be fully expended for us to continue the building that we are doing with our bond program. So the goal is for you to pass this resolution to authorize the sale, and we will sell by the end of September and fund in October. So we're asking the board to approve resolution 24-2502.
Can I have a motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. 8.5, resolution 24-2503, GAN limit appropriations.
Good evening, everyone. So this is something that happens every year along with our unaudited actuals reports, and the GAN limit is, it came about from Proposition 4 back in 1978. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense anymore in today's world, but it is still a law and we still have to pass this resolution on a yearly basis. And essentially what it is county boards and school district boards are making a resolution to the actual spending limit for the preceding fiscal year, and we have to do that at a regular board meeting. So essentially you're just saying that this is what we spent and we're within the GAN limit, and then we take that information and give it to the state, and the state reports their GAN limit as a state as a whole.
Can I have a motion?
To adopt the resolution as presented.
Second. All in favor? Aye. 8.6, unaudited actuals financial report from 23-24.
Why I brought my water. I bring it everywhere with me, I guess. Okay, another year is done with the books of Calistoga School District. Woo-hoo. Okay, so unaudited actuals is actually the only report of the year where we get to see our entire income and our entire expenditures. And it's called unaudited because it's before the auditors come in and actually audit our final books of the year. Unaudited actuals are due to the county by September 15th. And the ending fund balances reflect the actual balances of non-spending, restricted, assigned, and unassigned reserves. And we'll talk about that as we go through the presentation. Property tax revenue trends. So this is our property tax income over the last few years. You can see the increases from prior years, and you can see that they're different every year, and they fluctuate a lot. And so we normally project 4% in our budget. We have a couple of years where we came in right around 4%, but these last 2 years we've been a little bit above that. So the increase from prior year, those are the actual dollar amounts that correlate to the percentages. So this year from last year, we received a little over 1.2 million more in property taxes in revenue for 23-24. Annual property tax projection changes. This is just looking at when we adopt our budget, what we were projecting out, what we projected at first interim, second interim. We do a J2 reporting that is either before or after second interim, depending on if the numbers come in or not, and then unaudited actuals. So you can see there's a lot of fluctuation from where we started the adopted budget, a little over 19 million, and we ended up at 19.46. So it changes all through the year, and we update it as we know those changes. This is our general fund revenue. We had a net decrease from 22-23 of over $195,000, but a total revenue of just over 26 million. You can see our biggest portion of that is property tax income at 79%. We have state income that follows at 3.2 million, local revenue at 1.5 million, and federal revenue at a little over 500, almost 600,000. Our general fund expenditures for 23-24, we had a net increase of spending of over $1.4 million. Remember, we talked about our property tax increase by a little over 1.2, but our expenditures were 1.4. And we had a total expenditures of over $24 million, almost $25 million, with the largest of that obviously going to certificated classified salaries and benefits. This is looking at the general fund by function. So we do function is like what you're doing with your money. So we have instruction related supports like professional development, pupil services like counseling and transportation, district administration, plant services, and debt services. And so you can see that big gray block is obviously instruction, and then the orange and yellow are instruction related services and pupil service. So 81% of our general fund is devoted to instruction. And then the rest is for everything else, for district admin, for maintenance and operations, and for our debt services. Contributions to programs. We contribute to different programs with our property tax revenue and some of our state income. And routine restricted maintenance is how we operate our maintenance and operations for the district. And we are required by law, because we do get state funding for building projects, to have at least 3% of our expenditures going to routine maintenance. And we are a little above that right now at 770,000 for 23-24. If you just go to the bottom line in the totals, we've increased by a little over 300,000 in our contributions to different programs. It varies of ups and downs of what we're doing throughout. I do want to mention that cafeteria this year did not require any transfer whatsoever. So normally we have about a $250,000 transfer that goes to cafeteria, but because we are getting essentially right now wholly funded by the state with providing reimbursement for all meals that we're serving, the cafeteria fund is operating much better now. We did take that $250,000 and transferred it into our capital outlay fund. So essentially we kept the budget the same. We just put it into a different fund. And we did that because we have so many projects going on right now in buildings. So that helps us moving forward. Going into this year, you can see that we were kind of going back. We may not need that $250,000 again in cafeteria. It's budgeted right now, but if we can keep our expenditures down, we'll be able to reduce that going into the end of this year as well. Looking at our ending fund balance for 23-24, this is looking at what it was for each reporting period. So at budget adoption, we were deficit spending and we were going to be at about 11.5. You can see by the time we get to unaudited actuals, there's a huge swing from budget adoption to unaudited actuals. And that's because there's all kinds of things that happen in between, changes in income, changes in expenditures, and we're going to talk about what those are. So for 23-24, our ending fund balance increased by $1.3 million, a little over that. And that's from 22-23. So our ending fund balance was a certain number in 22-23, and now in 23-24, it's increased by over 1.3 million. We were projected to deficit spend at second interim by over $464,000. So that has now been wiped away, and we've actually increased our ending fund balance. There's a lot of things that happened at the very end of the year for the difference. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those. Our property taxes increased about $125,000 between our budget adoption and year end. So that's part of it. We received about $195,000 more in our CTE grants at the end of this year than we were expected to receive. And that's because I think the county had some CTE funds that they needed to spend. And so we were able to actually share our TOSA expenses, our college and career teacher, with the CTE program. So they were able to reimburse us for some of that salary this year. So that helped a lot. And then state lottery increase, we had 71,000 of an increase in 23-24. And then fourth quarter interest, we had 110,000 more because we had a lot of cash. And so our interest increased. Our restricted balance grew by over 85,000, and then our budget variance, that means what we had budgeted versus what we spent, was about 3.1% difference. And so all that kind of falls to the ending fund balance as well. Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, one of the things that happened with the budget adoption was that the governor said all of those school districts that are getting these funds, if you don't spend the funds by the end of 26, you're going to have to do a needs assessment of your school. You're going to have to figure out what the true need is, and then we'll decide if you're worthy to keep your money or not, essentially. And so we don't want to have to do that. We don't want to give any money back to the state. So I was able to kind of take some of the other expenditures that we had in like unrestricted funds and put them into the Learning Emergency Block Grant. That freed up almost $213,000. CCSPP grant. We didn't have a health tech position for part of the year, so we were able to move some counseling services into that grant. Already approved counseling services that the state approved when we got approved for the grant, but that freed up a little over $44,000. And then ELOP expenditures, we talked about summer school. Summer school is right now right at about $525,000 to run summer school, but we receive anywhere between $850,000 to $900,000 from the state. So we're taking some expenditures that are after school expenditures and kind of moving those into ELOP as well. And then, I forgot my little arrow at the bottom. Tech project. We had a tech project. We were doing the front row where we're redoing all the classrooms and allowing for speakers within the classrooms for teachers to be able to use microphones to teach. And so we had that originally budgeted in our tech resource, and we moved that to capital fund 40. So that freed up about $237,000. So you can see all of those numbers kind of combined is what made that big swing happen. And then our ending fund balance is made up of different components. Our actual ending fund balance right now is $14,168,375. Of that, a little over $15,494,000 is in assets, and then the 1.325 is in liabilities. And then it's kind of broken down. We have to have $8,000 set aside for our 2 revolving cash accounts that we have. We had some prepaid items in the 23-24 year that were prepaid for 24-25, so we have to call that out in our ending fund balance. And then all of our restricted balances total up to $3.2 million. Our other assignments and commitments are a little over $3.6 million, and then we have our 10% reserve that is in board policy of $2.4 million. And right now we have almost $4.6 million that is unassigned at this time. Our reserve percentage is based on our minimum reserve levels and our unassigned balances. So if you take that reserve for economic uncertainty and the assignments and commitments, those two things added up together would create our reserve percentage. We talk about what our reserve percentage is. And right now for 23-24, at this period of time for unaudited actuals, we're at 28.55%. Why do we need a strong ending fund balance? Cash is king. We want to make sure we have enough cash in our reserves to be able to make payroll, to be able to pay our bills. Property tax income only comes in December and April. We want to make sure we have enough cash flow during the other months that we don't have income coming in to be able to pay our bills. We do have unexpected costs that arise throughout the year. We do pull those from our ending fund balance and put them into the budget sometimes. And then we have one-time expenses right now that are being spent down in the next coming years. And we'll see this at first interim when I do my first interim presentation. Those funds are going to be what we're spending in one-time reserved funds right now are going to go back to our unrestricted. So we want to make sure we have enough in our ending fund balance to kind of take that on when the time comes. And then community funded districts, we don't get a prior year guarantee on funding. So we get what we get in the year that we get it. And so we want to make sure that we're prepared for that. If we project 4% and somehow it comes in at 1%, we want to make sure we have that in our ending fund balance to cover that difference. And then the state's volatility in their economic resources. We want to make sure that if they're going to say, hey, we don't have enough money to pay you, that we have, if we have programs running under that money that they're supposed to pay us, that we are able to continue those programs. We have other funds besides our general fund in our budget. And we actually have a new Fund 8 that's been new for the last couple of years. These are our student activity funds, our ASB accounts, our student council account at the elementary school. We have an athletics ASB as well as a general education ASB. And at June 30th, those funds almost totaled $70,000. Adult Education Fund 11, that $723,000 is essentially interest that has been gained since we started the Adult Ed Fund a few years back. Cafeteria Fund, even with not making a transfer into cafeteria, we had an ending fund balance of $208,000. That's great. We just had our compressor go out on our freezer. It's a $5,600 bill. We're really happy we have that because we have the money to be able to pay for that. Our Building Fund 21 has almost $19 million in it right now. You just passed the resolution for the sale of the last sale of the 2010 bond. And so that 18 million is already pretty much spoken for between our STEM building and our field improvements. So that's why we need the other 8 million coming in to be able to fund other projects that we have in the works. Developer fees fund, I took everything that was in that fund and I paid essentially for a lot of our temporary housing. That's over for the STEM building right now. So we have to make sure we spend those funds every 5 years. So this was a clean and easy way to do it. Temporary housing is a very okay resource or okay expenditure to use in Fund 25. So that's what we did with that. State funded projects Fund 35, almost $819,000 in that fund. Most of that is for our TK building. We have some design money that's already come in from the state to start designing our TK building at the elementary school. And then Fund 40 has a little over $1 million with it in it. And some of that is the front row stuff that we're doing with technology. So we'll be using that for that. And then Bond Interest and Redemption Fund, this is our bond fund that actually pays back the bonds that we've sold. So this is all our accumulation of the taxes that are collected from all of our community members. And that 2.2 million that's in that fund goes out back to pay the bond. Next steps, we have our 24-25 budget will be updated for first interim. We will continue to monitor property tax income and adjust the projections accordingly. And then in December, you'll get a presentation on the first interim. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, 8.7.
I think.
Oh, can I have a thanks? Can I have a motion to approve the unaudited actuals as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? All in favor? Aye. 8.7 resolution, additional employee authorization to sign on behalf of Board of Trustees.
This is a resolution that allows Michael DeFrancesco as the HR director to be able to sign contracts that are HR related, and also because he's instructional director as well, he can sign those types of contracts as well. He hasn't been on any signatures, so we'd like to add him so that because he does take care of those contracts, it makes sense for him to be a signatory on it.
Can I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Agreement with National Highway Safety Administration.
Yes, this is a new partner for us to provide online driver's education as part of our life skills class, which would be a new endeavor for us. And this is just the online portion of the class through remote instruction.
Motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Quotation from ELB US Inc.
I am very excited to present this part of our agenda. This is going to be our new, in this room, screen for presentations and things like that. So that projector and this screen are going to go away. And we're going to have a big screen on that side of the wall that is going to be available for presentations. It's also going to allow for emergency response things to come through. So if we were in here and something happened, we would see notification on that screen. So yeah, I'm very excited because I'm kind of over the whole yucky screen up there right now. We did set aside about $85,000 for this project. This screen came in at $63,377. And then the microphones added to that were about $15,000 over budget with both the microphones and the screen. But I'll update it at first interim and it'll come from the ending fund balance.
How big is that screen versus is it the same?
So the screen that we're going to get is going to be longer and probably almost as tall. So 138 inches.
Okay.
And it's really cool because this is my favorite part. It's really cool because there's little panels and they're all LED digital stuff. And so it's all done by magnets. So if there's a panel, like if the lights go out, you take a big magnet and you just pull off the panel because it's all magnetized on the back. And then you place it with with another panel.
Oh, so you don't have to get a whole new.
Right. It's kind of cool.
Let's see.
Yeah, very exciting.
I was gonna ask when you were saying it was seemingly under budget, why we just didn't get a bigger. But now I understand.
Now you understand. The microphones were very expensive. We were not expecting them to be as expensive as they were.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Maureen. Superintendent contract.
Yeah, I'll present this. I'm just going to read what we have on our agenda. The board will consider an extension to the superintendent's employment agreement for another 4 years through June 30th, 2028. And extending this contract, the base salary will be $253,187. The district shall continue to provide the superintendent with a housing allowance of up to $20,000 to enable the superintendent to maintain her primary residence within the district boundaries or at a location mutually agreed upon by the superintendent and the board, which is in close proximity to district boundaries. Section 1, term will be adjusted to reflect the following language. The term shall begin on July 1st, 2024 and terminate on June 30th, 2028. Should the superintendent receive a satisfactory evaluation pursuant to this agreement, and the term of the agreement will be extended for 1 year. The board shall place an item on the next regularly scheduled board meeting agenda following the date of the superintendent's evaluation for the approval of a 1-year extension of the term of the agreement. All other terms of the agreement remain unchanged, presented for the board's approval.
I have a motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Thank you. Reports, student representative.
So as I stated, our new student representative is at a soccer game. I don't know if we've got any updates on the score. But she sent in her report, so I'll just read it for the board. So good afternoon, everyone. It's amazing to think that just over 3 weeks have flown by since the start of the school year. We've made significant strides in this short time. Since late August, our fall sports have officially started with the cross-country, soccer, and volleyball teams all kicking off their seasons strong. However, the soccer teams have experienced a few game cancellations due to severe weather. We're optimistic that conditions will improve soon, allowing them to resume their matches. This year's ASB class has undergone some exciting changes with the guidance of our new ASB teacher, Mrs. Musser. We're diving into fresh ideas aimed at rekindling our Wildcat spirit and pride. In the first weeks of school, we created teacher appreciation posters and designed supportive posters for our sports teams. as to planning out an official senior sunrise hosted by our ASB class for the graduating class of 2025, where we provided donuts and hot chocolate for all students to enjoy. These efforts are a part of our broader goal to foster a positive and enthusiastic atmosphere among students and staff. Looking ahead, we're busy planning our school's homecoming, which is just around the corner. We're working hard to ensure it will be a memorable event that celebrates our school spirit and brings everyone together. With that being said, this concludes this month's school report. Thank you for your continued support and involvement.
Great first report. A 9.2 Calistoga Elementary School principal.
So I'm going to be careful this time because I came in very loud last time I did the presentation, so I'm a little timid with this microphone today. So we do have a presentation here for you today, and is it?
Yeah.
It's off. Hence, we're getting a new screen. Hopefully 2 more months. Yeah, and well, it's bullying policies and prevention. I don't know how great acting that out would go.
It should be on your.
Yeah.
So you won't access it, those online, you can see it, those that are watching from home can see it.
Okay.
And then we'll walk through, hopefully they'll come up and people that don't have access to that.
Yeah. All right. So I, as said, you do have access to it via the board links. And so today we're going to be talking about Calistoga Elementary bully policies and prevention. And Monica's going to also be doing a presentation. Some parts of this presentation will be similar. There'll be some differences just based on the age of the students that we're working with. And so there's really going to be 5 parts to this. What is considered bullying in educational settings, and how do we communicate behavior expectations with regard to bullying with the students in the community? How are bullying cases reported? Like, how does administration come to find out about this? And how do we handle potential bullying cases, and what is the level of impact of bullying on our overall elementary discipline data? So we have a student handbook that goes home with all of our families the first week of school. And it's in English and Spanish. And so basically in the school context, that bullying is aggressive behavior among school-aged children. It is really about a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. And both students who are bullied and those who bully others may have serious lasting problems or impacts. And in order to be considered bullying, the behavior must be aggressive and include what we call the imbalance of power, whether real or perceived, of the people involved in the situation. And the idea that it is repeated. So, and repeated means either with the same 2 students involved or group of students involved, or it can actually change in terms of the same behavior, but a different student. And so there are basically bullying falls into 3 categories: verbal bullying, and those are examples that I have under there: social bullying or relational bullying, or physical bullying. And so as you can see with all of these different samples, there is a variety of ways that bullying can occur on a campus. And so how we communicate those expectations is through the handbook. And that's on the left part of the slide. We also have a BEST, which is Building Effective Schools Together, or a positive behavior approach to dealing with student discipline and conflict. And that is for staff to use as a referral. We also have classroom meetings at the beginning of the year to really establish those relationships and have students talk about what frustrates them in the playground area. How are they going to work together to have a successful year? The vice principal also does presentations in all of our classes, focusing on grades 3 through 6. And then, as I said, we have our student handbook that we send home that goes over the policy, and we have our BEST handbook. Okay. So this is going to be one difference between the elementary school and the junior senior high school. We, because of our students' age, we don't use the Stop It app. And so we have a variety of avenues that potential bullying can be reported. And so these are some examples. There's always, little permutations on there, but for example, one of the things we talk about is being a upstander as opposed to just a bystander. So there are times that students will, see something and say something to an adult or say something to an employee, say to the effect of, this didn't look right to me. I'm not comfortable with this. The student was crying. And so that's one avenue that that potential bullying is communicated. Sometimes we have students who come to get like an ice pack or a Band-Aid. And so as part of the intake questions, we'll ask, what happened? How did you get that bruise? How did you get that bump? And so they may report potential bullying. We also have adult witnesses, parents, teachers, paraeducators who may witness it and report it. And also our parents report potential bullying to the administration. So sometimes what will happen is a student will be at home and say, hey, this is going on at school. I'm really not feeling comfortable there. And so parents will reach out to administration. And so in terms of how potential bullying cases are handled, and this is really pulled out of our student handbook, is that all allegations are investigated by the administration, depending on the context or the severity of the bullying. The following consequences will be implemented. So if it's considered like a low level or a conflict in friendship, or it's not repeated, or it's not exactly following into that pattern of the definition of bullying. We do have a youth specialist. That's something that we have with our community schools funds. And so we do lean heavily upon Juana Navarro to handle those friendship issues at the level possible, so that we're kind of nipping the idea of continued poor behavior. We also have a school counselor, and at times even administration will go in and have a mediated conversation with students. We do implement restorative dialogues, and that's really where students share their perspective of what happened and what was the impact on them and what do they need to make things right. One aspect of restorative dialogues is that you really have to have agreement of all parties that they want to fix that problem. And especially with bullying, if you do not have your parties agreeing, that's not going to be an avenue we're going to use. And then we also, in terms of any time there is an allegation of bullying, or we're trying to really document those trends, depending on the severity, we will put it in areas under interventions or under assertive discipline. At a higher level, and this means that we are determining that there is bullying going on, We will conduct an administrative investigation where staff and students are interviewed to determine the level of harm. And consequences such as a loss of recess, and that's in the case that we have like physical danger for students. Where a student could get hurt on the playground, we obviously are going to pull that potential person back. And then also if it's an ongoing issue of it's happening in the soccer area or happening in the tetherball area, we'll say, hey, let's take a break from this for a week and regroup and figure out how to fix this problem. We also, if parties are open to it, will we will engage in a restorative dialogue. And really at the end of that, when it's at a higher level, you actually come to agreements with that student and then you follow up on it in 6 weeks and you say, all right, so you agreed to keep out of the soccer area. You're now playing this. How's that going? When you're having conflicts with the student, are you going to a supervisor or a teacher or to the counselor? And so we follow up on that plan to make sure that it's working. And then, the higher level, where we have, physical violence, where we have, repeated warnings, re-educating kids, can sometimes lead to a suspension. And, I apologize for this. It actually probably looks better on your screen than mine. But what we do is we go through and we do an analysis of our data every year with respect to how many referrals do we have in the office, what was the nature of the referrals. This is actually taken from our student information system. And basically, where the arrow is that is, those are cases where we have confirmed bullying. Now, assertive discipline is a higher level, but you can see, and in some cases, you can see where bullying may be like a secondary issue. So there may be like a fight. So you're going to mark the, attempted to cause harm. And then if it's as a result of bullying, then we also put the bullying in there as well. So we identify every time in every area that potential ed code violations occur. So that is my report regarding bullying prevention. Are there any questions?
I have a question based on the last slide. So these numbers are for last school year. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
So there were only 9 instances of bullying reported to the office for the entire school year?
No. So what this is that this is under what we call assertive discipline. This is for higher level infractions. So this is not for like the intervention side or the like lower level pieces. So this is like in the case where we have students who get into a physical altercation, we do the investigation, or a student comes in and says, these are the repeated areas, and we counsel the student. And let's say that after the first time counseling that student, they turn around and do it again. And we reach out to the families and to the parents. So this is like the higher level. The more like low and medium, those are put under interventions.
Under interventions. Okay. Do you have that number for the low and medium?
I do not, because when we do those under the intervention piece, this is where we're not directly linking it to ed code violation. That's why under the assertive discipline screen, we have to link that event to the actual ed code violation.
Okay, because I guess the question that I'm getting at is when it starts at a low or goes to a medium level, at what point are we able to cut down on the amount of bullying before it goes to the high level? So is there a translation between the amount of low and mid-level issues that we have with bullying that then translates into double the amount of, high level, or does it cut the amount of high level instances in half?
Yeah, so we tend to find is that once we have a potential bullying situation, at the elementary level, we start out with really educating our students and our families and really have them understand the impact of repeated actions in that area. What we find is also through the use of restorative practices and really dealing with those low levels, we don't have high levels of repeat offenders. And part of it is the age of our students because they, have to learn that when, for example, we have times where students will say, oh, we're not going to play with that student. And so we will bring them in at that level and explain this is the potential harm that excluding a student has. And then from there, and working with our youth specialists and also our school counselor, then we use that as an opportunity to unlearn some of the behaviors and hopefully not go into recidivism. But in these cases where we are doing a high level, these are for students who have gone through all of the interventions, have had those conversations regarding where the behavior is interpreted as bullying. And each time the parent is contacted, and in some cases, it does lead to a suspension. But in terms of the overall amount, we don't get a lot of repeat offenders. And we really try at every level to re-educate and give that student an opportunity to understand the impact of bullying behavior.
And what about the other side of the bullying experience, the kids who are getting bullied? So I'm speaking from personal experience as a parent of a child who has been on that end of the spectrum. What is our follow-up policy with checking in with those kids, providing those kids with resources and support that they need? And how are we supporting those kids?
Yeah, so what I can say is with bullying, and this will also come up in the junior senior high presentation, it's highly situational, but in the cases where we have confirmed bullying behavior, we do contact not only the family of the student who was engaged in the bullying, but also the student who received the bullying. We also follow up with the student. Again, it's situational. So having some kind of check-in, check-out. Sometimes that's a school counselor. Sometimes it's the youth specialist. If it's a higher level issue, it's the administration who is doing that periodic check-in to make sure that that behavior is not continuing, and also making sure that in the event that there is any retaliation, that there has to be immediate reaction. Also through the restorative practices. And again, if all students are not in agreement, we do never force that, but there are times when we have those conferences with students and they'll say, this is a need I have based on the impact that this bullying had on me. And so sometimes that will lead to referrals to our school counselor, or possibly if it brings up other issues from the past, a Mentis referral. But again, it's very situational.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Are we able to?
Good evening. I will be sharing tonight a slideshow about anti-bullying for Calistoga Junior Senior High School. First, I'll go over the overview. Hopefully you all have the slideshow. Okay. Overview quickly. I have our WASC goals, which we updated last year, and our Calistoga Junior Senior High School values. I'll go over what we have done just the last 2 weeks of planner presentations, What we do in bullying is reported, our areas documentation, similar to what Ms. Lamar shared, and then how consequences and restorative practices are used when instances of bullying surface. So here we have our 3 goals for our WASC action plan. 1, improving student academic performance by using data to strategically implement academic interventions. 2, using data to create a positive school culture with increased expectations for student academic performance, positive behaviors, and motivation. 3, increasing school community overall and parent involvement in supporting student academic success and the social emotional well-being of our entire school community. So our WASC action plan does include details of how to achieve these over the next 6 years. And so that is something we are working on actively. So this year, and I want to give a shout out to Mr. Randy Burbank, who worked on this graphic, as well as Ms. Alex Andery. They helped put kind of all of our values into one infographic. So we have our be safe, responsible, respectful, and a new one we have added, which is be compassionate of others. And then we have our values below, which include what was formerly known as ESLERS or school learning goals. And that is delineated with the cats down below. We've shared this with students. We've also put it in classrooms. Because we made it early in the year, it's not included in our handbook, but it will be for next year. The last 2 weeks, we've been doing planner presentations. We did them in the large gym. So the 27th of August, Tuesday during CAP Advisory, we met with all of our junior high students. All students receive a planner/agenda. So it has, it's a planner they can write in, but on the first 40 pages are rules, regulations, important information. And so those are the covers of the 2 planners, the left being the junior high, and then the right is the high school. We do 2 different planners because the content is varied based on, for example, we include graduation requirements and other details that are grade specific. So our 9th and 10th graders, we did our presentation on Thursday, the 29th, 11th and 12th graders, Tuesday, the 4th of September. So during these planner presentations, we go over the important bullets of what we expect students, how we expect students to treat each other, how to, if there is an issue, how to report it. If a student is going to be suspended, to ask admin always, what ed code violation am I being suspended for? So giving students the tools to navigate the system that could result in anyone being potentially suspended or be in the office for a potential disciplinary incident. We also shared in our newsletter the PDFs linked to both planners for anyone who would like to read it, and that is included in English and Spanish. So at the junior high school, we have the Stop It app. It is something that we promote every year. I will say that it is not used as frequently as we would like, but there are students who have posted things. They can do so anonymously. So a student can go onto the app and write, someone is bullying me, or I observed XYZ that was inappropriate and want admin to know. And they can do so anonymously, which I think students prefer because they don't want anyone else to know that they've shared potentially confidential information. We do, when we meet with students, any student can report to teacher, staff, admin if they observe bullying. We ask them to write a statement or share with us verbally. As I shared, we use the Stop It app, and we also have, sometimes parents will come in or call the office to make an appointment to review maybe what they are hearing at home or have heard from friends. And then moving on, when bullying is reported, we investigate, we review all parties involved. We ask the students involved to write statements. Not all students are comfortable writing statements, but for admin, the statements are used as evidence so that we can follow up with the different parties that different names may surface that we need to follow up with. We always take notes so that we have an account of which students need to be called out at a later date. Administration works to resolve any conflict at the lowest level possible. Ms. Lamar shared restorative conversation. Oftentimes what we have seen at the junior, senior high level has been friends who were best friends, and then sometimes something happens in that friend group where it becomes there's a conflict, and then they were friends, but they're no longer friends. So we try to resolve that if possible. Not that anyone has to be best friends again, but to coexist in a peaceful way. So we try to resolve it, and sometimes that involves meeting with each individual student, hearing what their version of what occurred was, and coming to some agreements individually, and then relaying that information to the other person. Sometimes individuals are willing to sit in the same room. I always encourage, like, let's sit here and have a conversation and put it out there if we are able to do so. If it is too difficult where the 2 or 3 parties are unwilling to communicate, then we will we may have to give warnings and consequences, and conferences with the parent and or other individuals that can help with pending the situation. So all parties are involved and notified of the next steps. I do want to take a little side path here, because one way that we have started implementing to get information about what's going on maybe with students before it gets to a higher level is we've been trying to use the ARIES pre-referral intervention. And this is a newer feature in ARIES, but it allows teachers to go into ARIES, and if they observe something in a classroom that maybe looks off or something's happening, but they're not sure, they've redirected a student, they can go into ARIES and input that they've redirected a student for XYZ reason. When we meet with the student, we can look up and see what interventions or pre-referral interventions have occurred. And if we can see, oh, there's a pattern in a specific classroom, maybe that is where the incident's happening. Unfortunately, sometimes students are not willing to share all of the information I believe. So sometimes students will keep the information to themselves. But if adults around are observing things or seeing things that are off, then they can let admin know, or they can enter a pre-referral intervention. These are the ed code violations that were input during the 2023-2024 school year. You'll see under K, disruption of school activities, that is the most frequent ed code violation. That is disruption of school activities. That could be a student who was on a sub day, a student may be off task when there's a sub, and the sub has asked the student to come to the office. The student would be in the office. We conference with them. We would document that in ARIES. Attempt to cause physical harm to a person. There were 24 incidents documented. That does not mean that there was a fight for every incident. That could mean that there was pre-fight behavior or comments that were threatening. That could have been bullying. If you move all the way over to the middle, you'll see there were only 2 bullying ed codes input. That doesn't mean that there were 2 bullying incidents. I think listening to this conversation, I think part of what we could do a better job of is documenting bullying if it started as bullying initially. I think at the high school level, we tend to document is the A1, because by the time, unfortunately, it comes to the office, it's trying to prevent a physical incident from occurring, right? And saying, okay, we've heard that there might be an incident, or we saw you in a verbal incident outside, and we want to make sure it doesn't get physical. And we're going to document that and attempt to cause, threaten to cause harm to someone else. So I think that's something we could be more diligent about documenting if it did initiate as bullying. So those are the ed codes documented for last year. Only admin can input these ed codes. Just going back to the pre-referral, teachers can input interventions. So similar to the elementary, some low-level responses, conference with administration, contacting the parents of the parties involved. We have assigned detention or community service, or provide a warning. Oftentimes when we're sitting with students we talk to each student, and we hear different situations or different versions of what occurred. Also, we have a conversation about rumors and gossip, right? And where people are getting their information. So sometimes the warning might entail, let's just stop talking about this, right? Let's not talk about other people. And social media is a place that does result in kind of the rumor mill. So we try to, we encourage people to block, not be on social media. And, or if you're having a conflict with someone, perhaps block that person or don't respond to that person so that it doesn't continue any conflict. So that would be the no contact communication issued. If possible, we try to have a restorative conversation. And if needed, we would do a referral for Up Valley services, which could include Claro Clara group, counseling with Mentis, and or ACE for our 7th through 9th graders. For a higher level, we would definitely bring in the parents and have a longer, more in-depth conference. If needed, we would document ed code violations and suspend from school for 1 to 5 days. If needed, police involvement and or even if there is a suspension, we still want to try to resolve in a restorative way, because as we, while I don't live in Calistoga, I know that many people will go to the supermarket here in town, Calmart, see someone or be walking in town and see someone that maybe they have a conflict with. We want to encourage people to coexist in a peaceful way, even if we maybe are not the best of friends. So that's ultimately what we try to promote, is to coexist without any animosity. These are the Aries dispositions. So the dispositions are consequences that we document in Aries for any ed code that we input. So if a student is removed from class for XYZ reason, we might put conference with administrator as well as detention. So the detentions documented on here, there are 83 from last school year. These are for disciplinary incidents. These do not document detentions based on tardies. So is documented in Minga, which is a different system. You can see the parent contacts, any class suspensions, overall school suspensions, et cetera, down the path there. Referrals to counseling. And sometimes referrals to counseling are made without any incident, right? So a student may show up and say, I'm having a rough time. They may not want to call out any specific person, but they may share, you know, socially, I'm having a hard time and I need some support. And so we would just put in a referral with Up Valley, and that likely would not be documented in there because there's no incident, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't refer them to counseling. So this this actually is from the Aries pre-referral intervention presentation that was created by our vice principals. And this closing quote is about restorative practices and taking responsibility for any harm that maybe we've caused in the community and with others. And so the goal being that we want to have conversations and build our relationships and repair relationships so that we can again coexist peacefully. Do you have any questions?
Justin, you're looking at these numbers.
Which numbers, ed code or
I'm sorry,
dispositions?
The admin input disposition.
Correct.
The school isn't that big, so it seems like a lot. So I'm just wondering, do you think, based on what you see, that bullying is an issue at the school, or do you think the policies that we have effectively handle the situation?
So first, clarify the dispositions, not just.
Right, thank you. So these dispositions are for any disciplinary incident at the school, anything. So that's why I brought up the incident of if there's a sub. Unfortunately, sometimes when there's a sub, sometimes students push the limits a little, not all, but some. So maybe there's a student who's acting out and the sub removes the student. So that would be documented under that 48900K, which was 2 slides prior, 168, under that 168. For us, we would document in here under that 139, we conference with the student, we have a conversation, we remind the student that this is not how we behave, especially when we have guests on our campus that are helping us. And so that is not a bullying incident. That is an overall discipline incident. So so your question about, does this show that we have a bullying problem? Per these numbers, if we go back to slide, the education code violations, we only documented 2 bullying incidents. That doesn't mean that there were only potentially 2 incidents. It could be that we documented them under the A1 cause attempt to cause harm, which is 24.
Would it be possible to disaggregate the input dispositions based on the ed code that, or what the violation was?
The violation, is the ed code.
No, I understand that, but according to this graph, they don't know if you conference with the administration, what were you conferencing about? What was it related to? Is it possible to cross-reference the two reports to see?
It might be possible.
That's right, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I know, a few years ago, I did pull a report, but it was more individualized. So it gave every single suspension, not suspension, but ed code violation, and then what the consequence or disposition was.
You know how we, just the fact that how we use a lot of, we have schools with 75% Hispanic. Do you think that they believe that the kids who are not Hispanic and that have any, causing them like going to other schools or one of the reasons?
I can't speak to why students leave our district for other schools. I don't have enough information on that. I think, I mean, I hear different reasons, but I don't really know those reasons.
In your opinion, do you feel like we as specifically here at the junior senior high school are doing enough in the prevention of bullying as opposed to addressing it after it occurs? Because I know, you know, giving them a planner and sitting down with them at the beginning of the school year and be like, don't be a bully. And then, you know, we all have 10,000 other things to do and the kids, you know, get in their rhythm of sports and school and everything. But are we doing enough as a district as a whole in reminding the students, following up with the students, you know, see something, say something, you know, and the idea of, oh, kids are just kids doesn't, in my opinion, fly, because that is a real issue. And it could be just one little snippet that you hear walking down the hall could be a much larger piece in the puzzle than we realize, you know? So are we doing enough to kind of stop the problem from even happening? So I know we're spending a lot of time talking about exploring passions and trying to find, you know, have our kids find their passions outside of the classroom. But I feel like if, you know, a lot of times if a student's passion isn't the same as another, or it isn't something that fits inside the box of what a passion should be, that it's different, that it is not perceived well by other students or supported by other students. And so I feel like preventative measures, and I can speak, you know, both not just for the junior, senior high school, but for the elementary school too. Are we doing enough to prevent bullying? Not just saying, don't be a bully, but are we doing enough to back up teaching our kids how to be well-rounded students? And a part of that is to not be a bully.
So to go back to one of your first comments, sorry, I have to pause. It says that your computer needs charging. I don't want it. The idea of stopping it, yes, we do. If we hear it, we stop it. We ask people to report it. That is what we ask everyone. Are we doing enough? I think it's a work in progress. It's always something that we're working on. I do think we do have a huge opportunity right now. We do have a shift in our student leadership. And I was here Friday morning at 6 a.m. I think we had 46 of our seniors here. Who were really excited and thankful for an opportunity to do something different and celebrate unity as a class. That is another thing we talk about in our planner meetings, is like, be proud of your class, take care of each other. And so that idea of building a community within your class and with our classmates is something that I think we're always working on, and asking people to report things. It is amazing in this cafeteria right now, it's set up in this format, but for me personally, I find that students shared the most with me in the lunch line, right? Like in these informal conversations, when they're walking through, they'll give me a heads up about something. I think, and also BJ, who is our campus supervisor, has been an amazing asset. So thank you for approving that position. He has been the eyes and ears on our campus and has been able to diffuse situations before they surface. Just, finding students in places where they shouldn't be. We have a conversation, and that I think is how we resolve them before it becomes a bigger issue. When it's in that talking phase of, did you hear what so-and-so said? And so, okay, well, let's have a conversation in the office before everyone goes onto social media to post, yeah, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. We want to stop it. Let's not post anything. Let's again come down with the two people that are involved and resolve it at that level. So, are we doing everything we can? I think with our current capacity, yes. Can we do more? Yes. How? That's to be determined, right? How can we improve and decrease the amount of bullying that occurs? Not just here, but I think it's on. I think a lot of it is, unfortunately, it starts somewhere in the social media world, or it starts in person and then it extends into the social media world, and then it just kind of spirals.
Do we have anything specifically for the junior high? Because I feel like the transition from the elementary school to the junior high and, being 12 and 13 is such a wonderful age. Do we have anything specifically geared towards our, 7th and 8th graders to help assist them in navigating? I mean, there's puberty, there's, now having 7 classes, there's change dynamics with friend groups and, more kids on campus. So are we doing anything specifically to assist them in that transition and support them?
I would say that the 7-8 advisory teachers, the junior high team, has been working together to provide some of those systems and structures that will help students with the transition. We do have a 7th grade orientation, which allows the students to come onto campus, apart from if they didn't do summer school, come onto campus during the week before school starts to get acclimated, get a feel for what's expected of them. And then in CAP advisory, they have a small home base, not like similar to a homeroom, but it's called CAP advisory. So that's where they get additional support. And then there's also ACE mentorship for students who maybe would like additional support. So it varies based on need, but the junior high team does collaborate quite regularly to have the same systems and support for that junior high transition period. I don't know if we went offline or, so just wanted to know.
And it is. Sorry, it does. I just had to turn it on. I didn't push it all the way up to the top. This is also a conversation that we've been having in our class and design meetings as well, is thinking about specifically for 7 and 12 of trying to figure out a way to really focus on 7th and 8th grade. And so our 7th and 8th grade teachers are really trying to have a conversation about how do we, like have a true identity for our 7th and 8th graders so they don't feel lost in the 7 and 12. And what is that going to look like in terms of how they're supporting them, whether it's through CAP advisory or through all of the teachers that are in 7th and 8th grade. So I think to your question of, yes, we can always do more. I do think that we are cognizant of it though, and we are having those conversations because we know that we want to do right by our kids. And we need to model for them what it means to be a good person. And how do you put a stop to that behavior before it happens? And just kind of thinking, the golden rule, we wouldn't want that to happen to you, so how do you treat other people? And so we're getting some of it right, and we're learning in other areas because anybody who's been 13 knows it's not an easy road. And so we just want to be supportive of our kids. And we also know that being a teenager in 2024 is very different from when we were all teenagers. And so how do we support our students, especially in environments that we aren't familiar with and we don't necessarily agree is not the right word,
here, but we don't necessarily experience the same that they
For me, looking at these numbers, I assume the numbers that are reported on areas are the higher level by code violations. But what concerns me is the low level incidents that, it might not reach the point where it becomes a violation, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean that bullying is not happening. A smaller scale maybe, but it's pervasive every single day for some children, right? So I think that we need to start paying attention to that. For instance, I can say Juana Navarro might be keeping a log of how many students she sees in an everyday basis coming with the issue of bullying, right? And doing those historical the friends, talks and all that. So I think it's important that we pay attention to those little low level incidents, so that we can start thinking about how are we going to, to fight it, to make sure that it's not happening. I have to go next, but go ahead. I know.
No, well, I was just gonna say, bringing up Juana and both Kendall, I can say that at Calistoga Elementary, prior to both of those positions coming over, there was a very large gulf between preventative versus really dealing with a blown up situation. And we, both the counselor and Juan Navarro, for their, basically for their auditing purposes, because they are getting those positions funded, do keep track and do log what they're seeing students for. In addition, we departmentally meet every other week as a wellness committee to look at what's going on for our services for students. And if there are any trends that are going on, and we are in contact with each other. And then finally, just in terms of, looking at it, just because part of the reporting issue is because it's not tied to an ed code, but it doesn't mean it's not getting reported. I just want to be clear on that.
So then how do we access that information? So I understand, like India was saying, like the low levels, the ones that, like if a teacher hears something in the middle of class and they say, hey, stop it, or they try to, diffuse the situation, but then don't report it or don't log it into Aries or don't do that. I mean, I know that we can't have eyes and ears all over the campus. It's impossible to catch all of them, but it's like, it's just little things on top of little things on top of little things, and that inevitably will lead to bigger things. So I think that's where I'm coming from, is the consistent consequences, the consistent message that we're sending, and the consistent follow through. And if we aren't able to have, those numbers in front of us, then I don't think that this is painting an actual clear picture of bullying within the district. If you're saying, oh, well, these instances can happen, but they're not linked to an ed code, so we can report them in this. So, but there are more instances happening than what is being presented here, if that's my understanding that correctly.
Well, I mean, one piece of information that I can ask from our sports staff is in terms of how many friendship groups are they having to meet. And part of that, because that's kind of the first step of potential bullying. We, if we're talking like what's in Aries, that is usually in combination or repeated over and over again after re-education, but definitely something I can do is reach out to them and ask, how many friendship groups are you documenting? I already know, like last year, there's probably about like 4 or 5 groups that Juana was meeting with, just in terms of keeping those friendship groups solid with good, clear communication. And I do not know, in the case of Kendall, just because she has a lot of individual student contacts. That is something I can ask her for.
Have one more comment. So you mentioned, Principal Valderegro, that the Stop It Act is not really being utilized, it's not working, obviously. Is there anything else that we can research? I know when we go to CSBA, there have been many presentations about what is working in other school districts in terms of using technology or using other means to report bullying or report when our students are feeling unsafe. So I think that if this is not working, then let's start thinking about what is working and what can be implemented that is effective. I encourage that. And the last piece, the other comment I have is in regards to parents. I know, that the student handbook goes home with a packet of information or is sent through electronic means, and that doesn't necessarily means that the parents are going to read it. Yes, it's in Spanish. Well, we have a lot of parents that are not literate, or they are not, they do not understand these documents in writing. So I think it's important that to start thinking about how can we educate the parents as well, in regards to the, not only, living together and going to school together, but also talking to their children at home about, bullying and what the consequences are. In the past, Napa County Office of Education used to present this, bullying educational opportunities for parents, rather than NEMCO was one of them. So I think, if we start talking about the ELAC meetings, that would be an important thing to do. Just to educate parents about it, and also for them to know what we're doing to solve it. Because many cases, the parents do not know, their children come crying to them, and they have no information. Right? So I think it's important for the parents to know, yes, there was an issue. We had, they had a friendship circle, or we implemented restorative practices, and the parents will know that we are taking it seriously and we're doing something. So again, I encourage that in parent education. And we, whatever we can do with it, we're there.
Thank you, everyone, for your input. We are on Chris.
Hello, everybody. So right now, we don't have any fun fashion stuff. Go check out. We're pretty much in the backstage design process right now. So at the STEM Building Foundation report last week, around the week of the 23rd, they'll be pouring the actual slab. And they're also, if you haven't driven by the wood shop, they're prefabbing the walls in that parking lot. There's not enough room on the site to really do that kind of thing. So we took the parking lot for a short period just to get those all formed up. We have started the secret process on our fields. We're currently gathering the necessary information and data to have them come to a form and compile a bunch of questions on lighting and how many people are going to use it. Is the city going to just a whole bunch of stuff that the district, Van Pelt, and the design architect have to answer. We're in the process of putting an RFP together for the lease back. The sooner we can get a contract on board, the sooner we can start really nailing down some numbers, have a better idea of what it's going to take to get the project done. So hopefully by October, we should have a contract picked out for you. Last week, Audra, Maria, and I went to University of San Francisco to the baseball field. The company that makes a lot of the turf or provides material for the turf has a new type of turf that doesn't require infill. I don't know if we can explain how the turf works. The we were looking at before, we got the turf, but then in order to keep it fluffy, put some kind of filler or this pork or crushed up walnut shells and stuff like that. This doesn't require any of that. It's the previous turf we were looking at, the 10-year warranty, this was a 12-year warranty. So even if it costs a little bit more per square foot than our previous one, we're not paying for any filling, we're not constantly maintaining it, fluffing it up. So in the long run, I'm really hoping to do it because it seems like a pretty solid turf and doesn't require the infill, which also is, it just takes everybody's shoes, it's uncomfortable, it's not. If we can avoid you having these infill, I think it would be worthwhile. So we're just waiting on some numbers for that. We do have the lease list back process started for TK classrooms. Their responses are due on September 18th. We'll interview likely the week of the 23rd or the week following, and then hopefully by the October board meeting we have a contractor picked out. Actually, I skipped a step on that. I said that the lease back to the fields. We don't have something in October, but I don't believe that's the case. We have a process. We have to give them a certain amount of time to create their proposals. So I jumped into TK. That's the one that we should have October. And then we had a meeting with the city about the FEMA loophole. I guess you see it. I forget what's called, Chrome. Not loophole, it's Chrome. So when we met with the city, it really took us a while to get to it, but at some point the city's like, well, we allow to build in the floodway as long as it's behind a structure. So the way what we're looking to build is behind a structure that's existing. So if it were to flood, that water's going to hit the existing building first and go around. So the city would let us build. It's the city's choice. So the city's going to pull together the information from their city code and send it to West Hills, who is the consultant that's helping us with FEMA. And then we'll have a letter to take to the SA to say, hey, we need to get the approval, or the city would approve this, so, you know, why wouldn't the SA? So hopefully that would really skip a huge step in the amount of time to petition. Let's see, that's it. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Michael?
Yeah, so we've had a very smooth start to the school year. I think our high staff retention rates play a big role in that. You've got over 95% of your staff returning, all your groups, administrative, certificated, classified. It really makes for good continuity between June and August, right? Staff return and just get right back into their work. So we're 3 weeks into the student school year. We're already very engaged in some of our regular programs. We had a math PE day today for junior senior high school staff talking about instructional practices. This is our 4th year of partnership with the UC Davis Math Project. Our data leadership team met last week. I think that's also a year forward for this team to talk about use of data, how we use data to improve our practices across the district. We've had our science and reading training starting this year at both school sites. That's year 3 and 4 of that program. Our technology operations team, our tech ops team last week to talk about the technology integration projects that we have going on. And there's a long list, so I'm impressed that we were so quickly able to get right back into our important programs. I think what a continuous improvement looks like for us is really making improvements and refining our current programs. We're not trying to rebuild, we're trying to refine the programs that we have. I think we will have some new programs this year. But mostly it's building on the success that we've had. Our workplace violence prevention plan, which is a new requirement that we talked a little bit about. We've done our in-person trainings, most staff have been trained. Audra and I completed our first campus walks or inspections of the year looking for hazards, make hazard corrections. And since the workplace violence plan is a new requirement this year, I anticipate it's something we'll be working on throughout this year, just to make sure we get it right, and we know how to do this work. It's going to be an ongoing new obligation. We want to make sure that we do in the right way. In terms of new legislation, so the governor has received the approved legislation with multiple bills related to education. He has until the end of the month to sign it, so we'll know pretty soon what new laws are coming that will impact education, the number that we're watching. But one piece of legislation that was approved in very early summer was emergency approval and immediate implementation, was to no longer give the LPAC test to TK students. And the LPAC test is the test that we give students to initially evaluate whether they're English learner students, and then we continue to give it annually to see if they qualify to exit English learner status. So we did not test TK students this year. So that's a pretty big shift for us in terms of what we do in summer. Those students will then be tested now as kindergarten students, and that's a good thing. Because that test is actually quite rigorous, and I think when you give it to TK students, you run the risk of classifying students as English learners just because they come from families that have a language other than English being spoken at home. Just do the rigor of the test, right? You have to be able to write letters, identify letters, and TK would happen. So I think it's the right decision for the legislature. That will impact our practice if we say, okay, this is the group of students we're testing. Update on the homework survey. So we have a draft that's pretty much complete of a parent homework survey. It's had input from our site administrators. It's had input from Thought Exchange, which is important. Thought Exchange is our partner for comprehensive surveys. And since they do this work, the survey work, that's what they do. It's good to get their input on the survey that we have, on the questions worded correctly. It's had input from our data specialist, which is important because Alex Andari is very good with data, and she's you always want to consult Alex before you administer the survey. Because you do it after, and she's like, why did you ask the questions this way? I would have had better data. So, and I sent a copy of the survey to Kat last week. I think it was Thursday, so it's we need some time to get their input. But I think what we try to do with these important surveys is be very thoughtful about survey development. Like in this case, we're going to get one shot to go to our parents and get their views on it. We really want to make sure that the survey is well thought out. It doesn't need to be overly long or really complicated, but it does need to be well considered. You don't want to send it as, oh shoot, we would have asked that, or we should have asked. So we're excited about that survey. The next step is to identify a date to send it to parents. At our admin team meeting next week, we'll be talking about finalizing our survey calendar. We have a lot of surveys that we send out, so we want to make sure that we're strategic about when we send them, giving a little space between them, not overlapping. So the two surveys are going out at the same time. We'll have that date pretty soon. And then lastly, I'm going to give you a COVID update. I'm not worried about this. Not at all. I'm going to do it. We do have an uptick in COVID. I think that's for sure. It's nowhere near some of these large waves we have a noticeable uptick with staff and with students. We have a COVID test supply that will get us through the end of January. And it's a substantial supply. And so we send out a message to families. If anybody needs COVID tests, students, staff, parents, even families for their own family use, we want to get our tests out there. The more tests we can get out there, the better. So community safe, our school safe. And if we can minimize any potential spread of COVID in the schools, even if it's small, it's another student we can keep at school for more days, increase attendance and learning. And we want to keep our staff here and keep everyone as healthy as we can. So we're going to continue to stay pretty engaged with COVID support. We placed an order. There was an offer that came out right in the middle of the surge for new tests. So we ordered that, and we're going to continue to have tests, I think, for some time. So this is above and beyond what the law requires at this point with COVID. I think it's in everyone's best interest that we stay engaged with COVID. And if we're going to get an offer for free tests, we're going to take it, right? Let's get them. Let's get them in stock. Get them out to the school sites so that they're available for needs. And that's my report. Yes.
So, the new cell phone ban in schools, what is the latest update?
Yeah, well, I think that's on the governor's desk, and it's a priority project for him. And so I think he's going to sign it. We're going to see what it looks like. And I'll be interested to see exactly how that language is going to read. I'm hoping that I think we know it's going to be pretty aggressive, and it's going to say that school districts need to have a policy that's going to limit the use of cell phones. But I do hope that it reads in a way that gives folks local control, because what one district needs to do versus another district is really important. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. I think
that the governor feels pretty strongly about the fact that the districts and policies that detail how they're gonna limit the use of cell phone use. But I hope it's short of an outright ban or something like that, because we do need discretion for unique, circumstances of district space.
Some they said that the implementation was going to be 2026 in their first.
I think I heard that as well.
You know, they don't say the details about what state that it would allow us to control.
I can bring it back next month once it's signed. I have not read it in its entirety with detail. I can see the 2026 date as well. So we'll see, but I think it's very interesting to see on that particular issue has shifted. There was a time and place I know where we talked about really wanting to make sure that families had access to communicate with their kids, right? That was a prevailing attitude, and that's really shifted to a prevailing attitude. But I think California's probably maybe entering now of wanting to take a pretty aggressive stance on that. But I do think we're gonna have a little bit of time. If pattern stays the course, that I direct see some sort of guiding documents that give guidance to districts on how to create that process or policy. So I think that's fine.
How is our own cell phone policy going at the start of this school year?
Well, I think it's going better than last year. I think students coming back recall what we implemented last year. And so I think last year some of the struggle we had was just making it a new routine and a new pattern. And I've heard anecdotally from the teachers that they feel like kids are coming to the door, and even before they're walking into the door, they're taking their cell phone out, putting it in their backpack. So the teachers have shared a noticeable difference. I think the 7th graders are not allowed to have cell phones at school, or they weren't in 6th grade. So as 7th graders, that has kind of come over in an easier transition. They're not supposed to have them. The junior high kids have asked me if they can use them during break and lunch. We have encouraged them not to use them during break and lunch, to actually look at each other and have a conversation and say, how are you? And then they ask, but can we use them? So we haven't banned them or said you cannot use them at break or lunch, but encourage them to have conversations and just engage on a human level instead of being absorbed in their phones.
And so it's still kind of on, like, it's like 500 points on four line for teachers and our staff here, but it is still being monitored and taken seriously.
Yes, so first offense, the cell phone is taken away and the student gets it back at the end of the school day. It comes to the office. We have a running log, and then any offense thereafter, a parent has to pick it up. There have been students who have come to the office begging for their phone because they have Apple Pay on their phone, and we reminded them everyone gets free lunch here. But yeah, there were a few unhappy students, but they had their phone out when they weren't supposed to have it.
And then the Google Chat feature, was that taken away? I know it was opened up. I know this is.
I don't know about Google Chat.
Well, no, it was some teachers opened up the chat during COVID when there was teaching. And so there was talks of removing it altogether because a lot of kids were, chatting during class.
No, I think we have it on for high school students. We can talk more about it, but I think our attitude has been students are going to communicate. And if they're going to communicate, we'd love it to be with internet work, so at least we can monitor it. So if there's bullying accusation, I can see what happened versus it happening on a phone where you can delete it. Like certain apps can delete the messages, and it's like self-destructive. So I think that's where we're currently at. But we can continue to evaluate it since it's being misused. So I think that it is currently on for older students.
Okay. So my update.
Temperamental. So this year we have our dual immersion exploratory team. So we have opened the team up. Our first introductory session will be led by our facilitators on September 18th from 1:45 to 4:45. Our team consists of teachers from both campuses, administration, we have parents,
And then I'd like to have at least one of you, if not two. I know that Indira is interested in sitting on the committee, so if one of you, if somebody other than Indira is also interested, just let me know and I will send you an invite to that meeting. So the September 18th from 1:45 to 4:45. It's a Wednesday. And the intent of that is for us to get an understanding, a common understanding as a team of what language, what do we mean by dual immersion, what does it look like, so that we're all talking the same way. And then there will be a site visit from the facilitators in October. And so they will go to the site, they will observe instruction in our classrooms, they will do open meeting with teachers for teachers to give their input on how they feel about it, one way or the other. They'll also meet with parents, and so we're gonna do 2 parent meetings, one in person at 8:30, so the parents who drop off their kids and can have time to stay, they can stay. And then we'll do one via Zoom at 6 o'clock at night, and that'll be in English and in Spanish. So we'll do a breakout room so that people can be online for those that feel more comfortable or at home or because we have a lot of families that call in, and they are engaged, but they're unable to be here physically, and so this is one of those silver linings from COVID. And so that will be an opportunity as well. And once I get those dates and times, I will push that out to the larger community. As Michael said, we have our first DLT meeting of the year. Our theme for our Dow leadership team is to be curious, not judgmental. And so this is gonna allow our team to model looking at various forms of data and asking questions to help build upon our strengths and make improvements. Maureen and I met with Rachel from the city to discuss an intentional partnership with the city for our summer programs. So she's gonna work on a schedule that will put the summer sports camps in July after our summer school so that families don't have to make a choice between the two. We're also gonna be working on a schedule to where, or discuss ways to where we can partner with them for the lifeguarding. Kids might be able to get credit for summer school by doing the lifeguard camp, as well as the local art camp. And so tacking that on either in the afternoon or during the time so that we can build those partnerships and be intentional about the great offerings that our city offers, that's free of charge for our families. We attended a session sponsored by the Napa County Office of Ed to develop a strategic plan to reduce gang involvement in Napa County based on the grand jury report in April. It was well attended. There was representatives from all of the school districts as well as local law enforcement, as well as Boys and Girls Club. Up Valley came with us. Danny from the city came with us. And so I'll be scheduling a follow-up meeting with just our Calistoga cohort for us to talk about. We don't necessarily have a high number of gang activity in Calistoga, but what the missing component is providing opportunities specifically for our 12 to 17-year-olds to allow them more activities. So it's twofold. One is clearly communicating with our youth as well as our families on what already exists, and then figuring out if there are gaps, how do we fill those gaps with things that our youth actually want to do, not what we think that they want to do. So I'm looking forward to that partnership and moving forward with that. At the end of the month, I'll be attending the first convening for the League of Innovative Schools, and so I'm going to have Lindsay Unified in Visalia to learn about the work that they have been doing, and coincidentally, they are also a member of Transcend, so that's kind of exciting to know that we have that commonality with them. In 2 weeks, I'll be meeting with Brookwood as well as the Housing Land Trust. They're still gathering data around Money Lane. And to talk about what a partnership with the Housing Land Trust might look like when they get ready to make a recommendation to the board and what they think our next steps should be for the property. And then last week, I met with the Tribune editor to talk about ways that we as a district can partner with the Tribune, both with student voice, having them write articles, submitting photographs, and then she offered me an opportunity to write various articles in the Tribune, whether it's in the voices section or in a separate section. So if there are topics that the board would like me to focus on, you just need to let me know, and that can be the article that I can submit so that it can be in the Tribune and a wider audience can hear from us. And that's what I have.
Now we're on to board member reports.
I just wanna thank everybody for their participation at our Valley Family Center's Back to School celebration on Friday. We have close to 1,300 people at the Berry Field. Big thanks to the culinary program, the junior, senior high school, and most importantly to Rosa Rubio for her help with preparing the tinga tostadas, rice and beans for the participants. It was a very well attended. People really enjoyed the dinner. We're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Valley Family Centers, and it was a great opportunity for the community to continue. We had a banda and people were dancing away. It was a very, very happy celebration. So I want to thank the district for all their, the collaboration of these years, for donating their time, for Rosa and, the food for our community. It was pretty awesome. So thank you for attending. You were there.
I didn't sign in, so that probably was me.
Yes, it was. We were counting people and children, service agencies, and there were 51. You were there too. That's it, okay. It was very festive, so thank you.
I think it's one of the best events of our community, just so many people go, and it's such a good reflection of what a centerpiece of the district is to our community, that to bring all these people together. So thank you for that. I wanted to address one issue, and you kind of touched on it in your report, is I think it was last week or the week before, there was a letter to the editor, maybe of Voices, about the district's property, and the person suggested some ideas for the district's property that to me kind of indicated maybe a misunderstanding in the community about what we're doing with workforce housing and that property, and whether we should address that, just so we're transparent with the community and there's a good understanding, so it's not a surprise sometime down the road when we make a decision that the community doesn't feel blindsided about what we did. And so maybe doing a Voices article about that, because it seems like we haven't been clear or it hasn't resonated kind of our thoughts on it.
No, I think that's a good idea, because it's also, we're not anywhere near making a decision, and I think it's important that the community knows that. And also that when we do make a decision, it's not one that we're going to make lightly. So I think that's important.
And I think there'll probably be a lot of thoughts about it, or people are gonna have opinions. It's just an issue in our community, so I want to make sure we're clear about kind of what we're thinking, and for sure take in community opinions that way. So with that, does anyone else have any board member report? All right, our next meeting is October 7th. Our tentative future agenda items are sufficiency of instructional materials and independent study during winter break data. No need to reconvene to closed session. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everyone. Wait a second.